Good morning, everybody, and welcome to DCC Today. Happy Wednesday to you. We're going to start with a photo of the day sent in by Marceline Letourneau. And maybe this seems a little out of season because we're moving into fall, but this was a photo that Marceline took last spring at Pioneer Memorial Park. So if maybe you're dreading winter and the rain and the dark and the cold, this is a good reminder that spring will be here soon enough. So, Marceline, thanks for sending that picture. Announcement-wise, Sunday we continue our series in the book of Job. You can join us online at dcchurch.org or via DVD, or come to our 9 a.m. live service. Reservations are not needed, and look forward to seeing you there. Also, this weekend, don't forget, we go back to standard time. So, Marceline sent a picture of spring, that's spring forward, but now it's fall. It's time to fall back time-wise. So set those clocks back. And then Monday night, November 2nd, we have a movie night at 6:30. I think the movie actually starts about 7 o'clock, but you can come a little bit early, socialize. This is being hosted by our young adults, but anyone is welcome to come. So if you feel young at heart, you come and join us. Whatever the calendar says doesn't matter. You don't have to be young. And they're going to be showing the film End of the Spear, which is a wonderfully done film, great story, and you're going to really enjoy that. And then I got some news, late-breaking news at the end of last week. We had been raising money for Living Water. And maybe you remember that on Friday's episode, I talked about the fact that you all had given in excess of $5,000 toward Living Water, which was fantastic. But we had some very generous giving come in, and that total has now gone up to over $12,000. So thank you so much, you guys. I'm just constantly amazed at the generosity of this body. And what a wonderful thing to be supporting Living Water, providing water to those who don't have good drinking water, and also providing them with the water of life, sharing the gospel with them. So, wow, what great news. $12,000 toward Living Water. Thank you. How about a devotional thought for today? This comes from Psalms, Psalm 40. And Psalm 40 is a psalm of thanks by David, thanks for deliverance. The first part of verse 6 says this: "In sacrifice and offering you have not delighted, but you have given me an open ear." Now, if you're reading the old King James Version, you will find that that open ear is translated as pierced. You have given me a pierced ear. And that is one way that you could translate the Hebrew. And some have thought that this refers to the ritual of a bondservant. A bondservant was one who had been indentured. They'd been a servant to someone. They'd been a slave, but they had basically paid back their debt. They now could be free to go. But rather than leaving their master, they could make themselves a servant for life. They could voluntarily become a bondservant. And the way that was symbolized is that they would go to the doorpost of the house and they would have their ear pierced with an awl and then probably put a ring in it. And that became the symbol that they were still a servant, but they were a servant by choice. They were a bondservant. And so it's possible that what David is saying is, God, you don't want a lot of external things from me. You want me just to give myself to you as your bondservant. But the word ear there is plural, which argues against this idea of a single ear being pierced, that kind of ceremony. And it can actually be translated as dug out or opened. You have dug out my ears. You have opened them up, which then has the idea that David is saying, God, you have delivered me. And what I think you want in return is you want me to be someone who is open and ready to hear you and to obey you. And so maybe that's a good prayer for all of us. We all have our own stories of what God has delivered us from. And what he wants from us isn't just a lot of outward works. What he really wants from us are ears, hearts that are dug out, that are opened up, that are willing to listen and do whatever it is he's asking us to do. So I hope that your ears are open for what he may be asking you to do today. Well, Jennifer, who is our interview for today?
Hello, everyone. Our guests today are Jim and Judy Jansen, and they are coming today to share a little bit about their lives with us. So I am going to pass it right to you guys, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what household was like when you were younger, when you came to know the Lord, the usual blurb of questions we go through. Maybe you guys can each take a question and go.
Okay.
You want to start?
We were both raised in Oregon, and I was born in Eugene, and actually grew up mostly in Eugene, but also in Springfield, which is a sister town for those that know that area. And I grew up in a Christian home. My dad had really found faith as an adult, although he grew up in church also. But it was a very dramatic thing that happened before I was born. My mother was desperately ill. And as a result of that, a lady who was a neighbor prayed for my mom, and she was healed. Some believe it was a kind of a supernatural healing. And my dad believed it was, to the point where he started attending faith or the church and becoming very active in faith, and got very involved over the years and did a lot of jobs. And I've kind of followed him, watched him, and as a mentor. And actually, I've always been a person of faith. I remember asking Jesus into my heart when I was a little guy in Sunday school, but it's been a pretty steady walk with, a lot of hard experiences in the middle of it all. But I've never, disowned my faith or had experience of denying God. I've just kind of gone along since I was a kid.
Right. And how about you, Judy?
And I was born in the little town of Prineville, Oregon, which was a little horse town for many, many decades. And then but when I was a year old, we moved to Eugene. So that's how we got to the same general area. And we have discovered over the years that we probably were in the same places at the same times and did not meet until high school. And then he was dating my girlfriend from church. And she introduced us in the hallway at high school, and that was kind of how our dating experience began and how I lost a girlfriend.
Oh.
Whatever became of
Yeah.
But you started
yeah.
dating in high school.
Yeah, I was 15. He was 17, and yeah, he had already or was just about to win a violin scholarship to Biola University. And so I knew that we would be separated for a couple of years during high school, but he was worth waiting for.
Oh, how many years have you guys been married?
Kept track of each other and wrote letters. And we actually, this last year, we reread all of the letters going back to when she was in high school and my first year of college.
We wrote letters just every day or two for 3 solid years, and sometimes more than that. So yeah, it was a journey to go back, and every morning we would read a love letter to each other this whole past couple of years. It's been great.
How sweet is that? And so how many years have you been married altogether?
47 years.
Wow, that's wonderful. And they say high school relationships don't last, and look at you.
Exactly. Yeah. But we have 4 kids and 10 grandkids, and 3 of our kids are in the Northwest, not right here in Sequim, but at least reachable, and 1 in LA. So they keep us busy.
And we try to keep track of them.
Judy, did you grow up kind of knowing the Lord, or I don't know if did you?
I did, yeah. I was very fortunate to be, really, I remember being a little tiny thing in church. And so, yeah, we had a little tiny church that I was part of, and it had its limitations, but I really was taught to love the Lord there, and so glad that I was.
Okay.
So,
And so tell us a little bit about your careers. What you mentioned already about violin and going to school on a scholarship. So maybe tell us a little bit about your career.
Right. I had the very good fortune. It was actually a Christian teacher in middle school that arranged for me to get lessons with a professor at the University of Oregon on the violin. And he was just a wonderful mentor to me and tutored me very well. And I had thought in high school I would probably end up being a violinist in a symphony orchestra. That was sort of a goal I had. I loved the symphonic sound. It seemed to be a good fit in terms of just my things I liked. And then I went to Biola on a scholarship, and they didn't have an orchestra. They had a little string ensemble, but I played with the orchestra at Cal State Fullerton and was still sort of thinking about being a violinist in those terms. And then my third year at Biola, I had a class in choral conducting, which is part of my requirement. And the teacher got me aside about halfway through that course. He said, "You have an ability, which is pretty remarkable. You ought to consider getting a job in a church, directing a choir." So that was sort of the spark of a call to ministry, and not knowing where that would ultimately take me. But it wasn't too long after that that I was an assistant director for a pretty large church in West Covina, California. And there was also a mentor, and I learned a lot about how church music administration worked. And after that, I got a full-time job at 23 years old in a church in Lodi, California, not far from Stockton. And we were in church music. Judy and I served in churches for about 35, 37 years, doing church worship, church music leadership, and in general church leadership. I was associate pastor, so I would do like other things besides music, including visitation and senior adult ministry and that kind of
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
And Judy had an interesting, quite different career.
What about you, Judy?
Well, my career was not a straight path. I was in music education my first year of school, and then I switched to K through 12 education, got my degree in that eventually. And I taught school for part of the time, and then got introduced to a computer lab in my school. And I ended up teaching in the computer lab when that teacher was let go. So that was the beginning of my true career in computers and computer education. So I had a variety of jobs with mostly nonprofits and churches and this Kent School District. So whatever job I had, I seemed to be the trainer, the computer trainer. So I started my own training company when we lived in the Bay Area, and that went really well. And then we moved here, we moved up to Newcastle, and I wanted to continue that for a while. But then 9/11 came, and it sort of crushed my business because most businesses diverted their computer training money to home security. So I went back to having a real job and working for other people, but I ended up still in computer education and data administration. So that's been my background.
Okay. Well, and in this day and age, and even before, that's such a valuable skill to have, that once people know you have the skills, they like, oh, help me. So I can see.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so what brought you guys to start coming to DCC?
Why don't you tell that story?
Well, my mom, my stepdad is Maury Medlin, who used to attend DCC years ago. In fact, he helped build the main sanctuary that we're using now.
Wow.
And he was here for 14 years in Sequim.
After he retired.
Yeah, and he loved it, just loved it. He was married to Betty, who was a wonderful lady. And then they moved to Longview, and unfortunately, she died of cancer. And a little while later, he met my mother. And at the age of 83, they eloped. And so, didn't tell us kids. And so he was always talking about how much he loved Sequim. So as we approached retirement, we were looking for various places where we might consider retiring. And we ended up putting Sequim on the list. So when we started talking to them about it, it was kind of like they said, well, we will if you will. So the four of us all moved to Sequim. And
2017.
in 2017, yeah, 3 years ago. So we all live in Sunland, but Maury passed away this past March.
Right.
So we're really sad to be without him now. But Mom is still there, just within walking distance of us, and we're helping take care of her now.
Right. Okay.
So we actually went to a lot of different churches when we first arrived to Sequim, and we were trying to find a place where all four of us were comfortable. So it wasn't just like Judy and I, and one of the contributing factors was Maury was very hard of hearing, and he found Tim's voice timbre most agreeable just about of the preachers that were, the kind we were looking for. And that helped a lot.
And his sermons were very clear and easy to follow too. So that was also a big factor. So
that was as much of anything. And we were comfortable. And once we started attending more frequently, we started getting involved. Lois Lee, who's in one of the people in our small group, invited us to that life group. And we are still attending that group with Rick York, Rick and Nada, and we're tied in on that. We like it, and we feel it's contributing in that way. And then, of course, Judy's involved with the women's ministry, and I'm participating more in worship. It's fun for me in that I'm not in charge. I just come and participate. So I see all of the work other people are doing and kind of smile and do my best to do what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And let other people do the editing and all the stuff that I used to have to do. And I'm glad to see other very capable people being in charge. So it's a good feeling for us both.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about your lives. I've come to know a lot about you two today that I didn't know before we started this interview. So it's been great to have these to learn more about people that we don't always know much about. So thanks for being willing to share with us today. And I will take just a minute.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, let's lead out in prayer today. I'll pray for us. Okay. Father God, we just thank you so much for these times when we get together to learn more about people in our congregation. And I just thank you for the willingness for the Jansens to come and share a little bit of their life with us, and for the blessing that they are to our church, for the ways they contribute. Thank you for the way that you've brought music into their lives and how you used it to shape their ministry and where they've been able to work throughout life. Father, I just love how you use different things to bring people to you and to your body and to share with others. And I just pray, Father, as we go out today, that we will be a light for you, and that this interview will just help people to get to know them a little better and bring us even closer together until we can all be together for real. And we just pray and thank you for all that you do to bless our lives. And we thank you for your son, Jesus, and his ultimate sacrifice for us. And we are just humbled to be here today and every day. It's in your precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I trust you have a great Wednesday. We'll be back here again Friday morning. And until then, God bless.